Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Questioning a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time.
Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. I'm so excited to be here today. This is a good one. And this is a guest we've had on before. You know, we don't do this a lot on TNT, so it's a big deal when we have one of our varsity humans coming back through. We are going to talk about a lot today, but I want to specifically dive into Rhabdo. If you've been following my social media at all, the past few weeks have been crazy. I've been a longtime athlete and I finally got bit by the Rhabdo bug. I didn't know if it was going to happen, but we're going to talk about what it is, what to look for, what signs you need to check out, what I did to get it. We're really going to unpack it because this is not something like that you can easily diagnose or know that you have. It took me a few days and it can get really scary if you don't know that you have it. So before we do that, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Colorado Clownfish Swim School, swim lessons and water safety training for all ages. They believe in life skills through sports. So go waterproof your family today. They've got tons of gift specials going on right now for the holidays. You can check them out at coloradoclownfish.com. And our very own Declan James watches. They are local and veteran owned with 10% of all their proceeds going back to the Navy SEAL Foundation. So they're also another perfect gift. Go get them out there. Without further ado, Mr. Steve Nagib, one of my favorites. Welcome back to Turmeric and Tequila.
Thank you for having me. I'm stoked. That was you. We were just talking offline. We haven't talked in probably too long, right? It's been months to
Yeah.
years. And when you texted me the other day, one, I was like, holy shit, you got Rhabdo. Tell me more. How can I help? Two, I was like, of course I'm going to come on the show. I miss you. I miss your spirit. I miss your energy. And it's an honor to be here.
Hey, my guy. Yes, I was calling my go-to humans, and there's a reason for that, which we'll unpack. But I want to give his bio before we get in because Steve is a magical healer. That's actually how I would just label him with all the energy. He's a human in the arena. But I want to read his bio because it's so his soul. I love it. Steve Nagib is a curious soul turned guide for modern professionals. After a decade training elite athletes, he realized physical performance wasn't enough. People were breaking mentally and emotionally. So in 2023, he took a global sabbatical, chasing questions that didn't yet have words. That journey led to a new mission, optimizing the full human experience. Today, Steve helps high achievers live, lead, and love without leaving themselves behind, bringing heart back into high performance. Amen. Who wrote that?
Apparently me. I have no recollection of writing that, but you must have asked me for a bio at some point, and that was whatever I texted you back off the cuff, and I need you to
I
send
love
that
it.
to me because it's pretty good.
It's so good. I love when I often think, particularly for my spiritual connected varsity humans, we are just like vehicles and like spirit, God, Eunice Madonna just kind of uses us and it comes through at the right time. But and since you've been on the show before, you can give us a little like quick bio of like how you were as a kiddo. But I want to know, what are you doing right now?
Yeah, as a kiddo, I was probably a cross between a troublemaker and a goody two shoes, right? I was in the honors and AP classes. I was also a jock. I also got in trouble. I also I did all the things. My childhood was eclectic, right? Sports, school, Boy Scouts, immigrant parents. But I did the thing, right? I went to college. I went to grad school. I moved across the country. Got my first job in college sports, then went immediately into professional sports as an athletic trainer at the ripe age of like, I don't know, 28, I think it was. I say I quote unquote retired from athletics. I went, and actually that's where you and I met. I went and became the general manager of a private clinic, a sports recovery clinic in Denver, Colorado. And then, like you said, took a life sabbatical and am cruising through life still. So when I got through that life sabbatical, I got back in about 2 years ago, end of 2023. Started my own health and wellness kind of concierge coaching business. We were doing mind, body, spirit is kind of what I called it. So grow physical, grow mentally, and grow spiritually. Not woo woo, not religious, but more of like, how are you going to show up today for yourself, for the world, and for the people around you? That through a crazy series of events, which is probably a story for a different time, led me to getting in contact or getting kind of in the room in a private equity firm down in Florida. And I actually about 6 months ago moved from Colorado to Florida, and I served as the chief of staff for a $50 million private equity firm, and an advisor to the owner and CEO. So it's been a whirlwind. People are like, "How'd you get into private equity?" I was like, "I practice medicine," and it always throws them and then I walk away and they're just like confused. So
Dude. Well, I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all because you wear a multitude of hats. And I swear, if you're a people person, you know how to manage relationships, you know, have your feet on the ground. You need to have specific skill set for certain things, but you can pretty much assimilate into any sort of leadership role when you've got, you know, your heart and your mind in alignment. And then you can figure out the details with almost any job.
so they say. We'll see. We'll see how I'll just continue trying hard and being me, and we'll see what happens.
Let's go. I mean, you could run for president. That might be up for some grabs soon. And, you know, there's
I
not always
don't
checks
want it.
there.
I don't even want it. After watching this circus, count me out.
Dude, it's so wild. Okay, well, let's get into what is important, and that's fitness and sports. And I will tell my whole journey with Rhabdo and the whole sequence of events in a different podcast. But today, I want to specifically talk about what it is. I'll let you say rhabdomyolysis, whatever it is. I'll let you do the science and the details because Steve has a wealth of experience here. And the funny thing with this is, it's pretty hard to tell that you have it. I didn't know until 3 days later. And then even my doctors, I was in the hospital for 5 days, 4 days fully, like, you know, 24/7, and then 5 days, including the ER visit for 11 hours. And I've had major knee surgeries. I've never had this long of a hotel stay, a hospital stay as I did for this. So it was way more serious than even I thought. And I think our athletes really do need to pay attention and know what this is, because if you let it go and it gets serious, it can lead to kidney failure and it could be fatal if you really let it go. So, and my doctors, I had shout out to St. Luke's, they were great and awesome staff, like nurses, everyone was amazing. And a lot of people still didn't know what rhabdo was. I even had one doctor say, like, yeah, I Googled it. And I was like, wait, what? And it's just not a super known thing unless you're in fitness, you've dealt with athletes, like you've seen it firsthand. So as people, I always say we've got to advocate for ourselves, but as patients, we have to advocate for ourselves even more. So, Steve, why don't you break down? I know you've seen it a ton of times. You probably have more intel than most of the doctors that I saw, not to discredit doctors, but to credit you because you've been so far into the game. But tell us what it is from a medical or professional perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I like that you said it. I'm not going to shit on any doctors, but I will say we definitely put physicians on a pedestal. And the more and more, like 50 years ago, you went to, or 75 years ago, you went to like your little town's doctor and they kind of knew everything. It's not that way anymore. Like doctors, physicians today are so specialized. You're not going to go to a cardiologist for nutrition advice, right? You're not going to go to a brain surgeon for an orthopedic injury. And unfortunately, rhabdo is one of those things that is it's weird because it's quite rare, meaning like it doesn't happen all the time. It's why a lot of people don't actually know about it, know what it is, have never heard of it. But at the same time, it's rare, it's hard to spot, and it affects the healthy population more than the non-healthy population. It's one of those weird things. It's like go to the gym, they say go to the gym, eat right, sleep well. It's like if you're healthy and resilient and tolerant to injury, tolerant to disease, tolerant to all sorts of different things, right? You're like, okay, I'm good. Well, rhabdo is one of those things that actually sneaks up most often on the healthiest people out there. So it's this elusive thing that, again, when you texted me the other day and you're like, I got this, my first thought was, holy shit, are you okay? My second thought is, I'm probably one of the only people you've texted that's actually dealt and treated rhabdo cases in elite level athletes. So rhabdo, for those of you guys who don't know, it's called, the full name is rhabdomyolysis or rhabdomyolysis, depending on who you ask. Do you want me to just get into kind of what it is? I forget. You
Yeah.
probably asked me a question already. Rhabdomyolysis, or myolysis is the other way to say it. Rhabdo is at the core, if I put it as concisely as possible, is myoglobin entering your bloodstream. Now, a lot of your listeners are probably fitness athletes, probably not a lot of people with medical background. I said that was the concise way to put it, but it's like, what the hell does that mean? Like, what does it mean when myoglobin, first of all, what the heck is myoglobin? And what does it mean when it enters your bloodstream? Myoglobin are little circular proteins that live inside of your muscle tissue. So a word that a lot of us are probably more familiar with is hemoglobin, right? Hemoglobin are little circular cells that live inside of your blood cells that are responsible for carrying oxygen throughout your entire body. Myoglobin essentially does the same thing. It's the same type of protein, but it lives inside of your muscle. What happens when somebody gets rhabdo is the muscle proteins essentially um, break off, for lack of better terms, break off of your muscle. That's not the right word, but we'll say that. And instead of staying intact inside of like your muscle fibers, they enter your bloodstream. Now, what happens when they enter your bloodstream? A whole like first of all, a whole bunch of things happen, but the worst thing happen is makes your blood. Imagine like your blood is maple syrup, right? And when you're warmed up before an exercise, or you have a good night rest, or you're hydrated and you're not inflamed, that maple syrup is like it's warm, right? So it's kind of like water. It's very viscous. Or it has a low viscosity, meaning it flows really well. It flows through your kidneys, your lungs, your heart, carries oxygen to all of the muscles in your body. When you're not warm, you're stiff, you're not healthy, you're inflamed, that maple syrup turns more viscous, right? You ever think of like, you ever try to pour out cold maple syrup and it just moves very, very slowly? Well, imagine adding sand to the mix, right? So myoglobin, when it breaks off of your muscle fibers and enters your bloodstream, not only do you have cold maple syrup because there's a super, super high amount of inflammation, but now you got like this gritty sand texture that's flowing through it. When that basically like sandpaper water is what I would call it, flowing through your heart, kidney, liver, lungs, it's causing damage because those areas aren't meant to be met with grittiness, right? They want to be met with really smooth, free flowing water. So that starts to cause a whole cascade of effects. I'll pause real quick if you want to ask a question, but that's essentially what it is in a nutshell. It's the breakdown of muscle proteins and the entrance of those proteins into your bloodstream.
Dude, you're the man. That is more intel I got on that after seeing literally the hospital for 5 days, and I didn't have anywhere close to that outside of my own Google research, nothing close to that. So gold star for you. And it when you understand what it is in that, you're like, oh shit, this is bad. I didn't know. My quick experience, and again, I'll unpack the whole thing because it was a sequence of events, but I was doing a fitness competition and I did basically 120 kipping pull-ups in about 7 minutes. And then we did for another event, max deadlifts at 185. So I had a reverse grip with my right bicep. So it was my right bicep that was the thing that broke down. So it was a perfect storm. And rhabdo is notorious in CrossFit. Like we always had fears, like if you overtrain, you're going to get rhabdo. It was a joke. I'm 17 years in the game. I didn't know a single person that's ever had it. My dad coached at Bladium for 20 years and competed, blah, blah. He knew one person. So it's still a pretty rare thing. So we didn't know what it was. And I had no idea. I didn't know that I was inflamed until this was a Saturday, until that Monday. If I had seen you, you would have been like, dude, you need to go to the doctor. But I showed up to the gym and I was so swollen, but it was also my birthday that night. So we had like fitness and then we had some drinks at night, but I've trained way harder and partied way harder in one day. So nothing that was like a red flag. But if you saw me that Monday, my entire body was so inflamed. I was like, and I still didn't think it was a bad situation until that night. So this is Monday night. My right arm was so inflamed. It was bigger than like my dad's arm. Like it was huge. And I was like, I think I have a blood clot because something spasmed and my arm stiffened. And I was like, I better run up to urgent care, like for a quick IV or whatever. And like 5 days later, they're like, no, girlfriend, we did a blood test. You have rhabdo. Like you're going to the hospital. So tell us, because I didn't know and I didn't know what to look for. I know your urine can be brown, blah, 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 but what are like the telltale signs, and what is something that like really stands out, or what should people watch for if they think that they have this?
Yeah. Yeah. That's why said in the beginning, it's one of the most elusive things because of the way it actually presents. The crazy part is the thing that gave you rhabdo happened on a Saturday. You probably didn't exhibit, like you said, any symptoms until Monday. So
Yeah.
before we jump into that, I wanted to say something earlier that I kind of forgot. I don't have a script. You and I we're just talking shop. We're talking about a very specific type of rhabdo. I want to make that super clear for people.
Okay.
Rhabdo is a overarching term that, again, most of your listeners are probably pretty healthy in the fitness community. The degradation of muscle proteins into the bloodstream can happen from a lot of different things, right? Hypothermia, hyperthermia, the use of narcotics, trauma, right? So car accident victims, bloodshot victims, people who use methamphetamines, like all of these different things can cause a breakdown of muscle tissue to go into your bloodstream. The reason why not many people outside of like emergency medicine physicians and ICU personnel talk about rhabdo is that's like, I would say, one bucket of rhabdo, but they're usually treating 10 or 15 different things when that person presents to the hospital. So I want to make it super clear. Like if you Google rhabdo, if you're listening to this and you're like, holy shit, this is interesting. I want to Google it. The first 8 out of the first 10 hits that you're going to get on Google are going to be talking about that, right? They're going to be talking about rhabdo that happens most often in traumatic events or in what I would say like people who either use drugs or are exposed to environments that you and I probably aren't exposed to too often. What I mean by that is like homeless people, right? People living
Yeah.
outside who are exposed to frigid temperatures for long periods of time, and then the opposite in the summer, obviously. So I want to make that super clear. We're talking about one subset of rhabdo called exertional rhabdomyolysis, right? Exertional rhabdomyolysis is exactly what it sounds like. It's a rhabdo that happens when you overexert yourself, normally in a physical activity. I don't know anyone who's gotten rhabdo from exerting themselves too much mentally, but who knows? It might
There's
happen
still
out there.
time.
You know, so what basically how it presents is there's two main buckets. They're both physical representations. The first bucket is what you kind of saw in your arm, right? So what I always tell people is you're gonna have muscle soreness, muscle weakness, or muscle swelling that is more than you would expect given the exertion that you provided. Right. So a lot of people, we all know a hypochondriac in our life that's like, oh my God, my right arm is more sore than my left arm. I must have rhabdo. Well, how many pull-ups did you do? How acclimated to pull-ups are you? How sore are you? Are you at an 8 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10? Right? So but the hard part is a lot of times that you can be absent of those symptoms and you can still have rhabdo. The other big bucket, and you kind of mentioned it, you were like, my pee wasn't brown, right? You kind of glossed over
Mhm.
that. That's the other big bucket, right? We all talk about your urine color being or an indicator of hydration, right? So when people are like, wait, brown urine, are you talking apple juice? That's not what we're talking about here. So I always tell my patients, or when I was working in the clinic, when I was working with high level athletes, I was like, okay, let's talk about how hydrated you are. Is your urine clear? Does it look like lemonade or does it look like apple juice? Even the people whose urine looked like apple juice never, even if they said it, they were like, oh, it kind of looks like apple juice, maybe even a little bit darker. My antennas for rhabdo never went up, right? I was never concerned that they had rhabdo. I was like, holy shit, you're just really, really, really dehydrated.
Yeah.
When I heard somebody come into the locker room, I'll never forget this. It was 2017. I was working at a D1 university. I won't say the name of it, but it made national news. Two different athletes came to me and they said, my pee is a weird color. I think there's blood in my pee. And they were football players. And I was like, okay, let's talk about what happened today. Do you remember getting hit? Football players, they wear pads up to their hips. They wear shoulder pads, but their abdomen area is usually exposed. So when someone
Yeah.
says, hey, I think there's blood in my urine, I'm like, do you have a gallstone? Do you have a gallbladder bleed? Did you get hit in the kidneys? Is your liver bleeding? Do you have an internal bleed? Even that, though, usually will present with other symptoms before you start pissing blood, for lack of better terms, right? Usually there's a ton of
Mhm.
abdominal pain. This kid came in and he was like, no, like, I mean, we had football practice, but I don't remember getting hit harder than normal in my kidneys or in my abdomen. And my kidneys don't hurt. Like, my abdomen doesn't hurt. He's like, my legs really hurt, but I don't know. We sprinted a lot today. So I was like, if you had to pick one drink that your urine most likely resembled today, tell me what it would be. And without hesitation, he was like, Steve, I don't know how to say this, and I think you're gonna laugh at me, but my urine looks like Coca-Cola. And I was like, yup, we're going to the hospital. That's how dark his urine literally looked like Coca-Cola. So that same scale of like clear to lemonade to apple juice for hydration, there's a separate scale. It has a name, it starts with an M. I forget the name of it, but the separate scale, we go from tea to Coca-Cola, right? It's like I'm talking like black tea, Lipton tea. If it looks
Whoa.
like that or any darker, like Coca-Cola, that's the other kind of bucket that we'll see symptoms of, okay, you definitely have rhabdo. There's people that have Coca-Cola pee without the muscle swelling and fatigue and weakness, and there's people that have rhabdo with the muscle swelling, with fatigue and weakness without the Coca-Cola urine presentation. So I always tell people there's two buckets. If you have both, go to the hospital now. But if you have one, you should still get checked out because you probably have some sort of rhabdo case or presentation.
Okay. I knew about the urine discoloration, and I Googled it. It was urine discoloration, some sort of like brain fog. Like I noticed that Saturday night I really felt like I had a lazy like recall. Like I was trying to speak and I was tired, and I had done a bunch of stuff leading up that week. So I think I was just fatigued and likely dehydrated in general. But when I started to put
Mhm.
stuff together, and then I never knew swelling was like a big deal. Like I was all inflamed. I'm pretty sensitive off gluten and yeast and whatever anyways, and after a
Yep.
party weekend, whatever. But had I known swelling specifically was such a big deal, that would have been a major indicator. I had no idea that was like, which makes perfect sense, but this is swollen beyond just a normal swell session.
Yeah, I would assume there was like a softball in your biceps, right? Like it was
Yeah.
painful, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Really,
So
really
this
painful.
Yeah, the swelling is really interesting because it's actually not created by the injury. It's created by your body as a result of the injury.
Yeah.
And I won't nerd, you know me, like I'll like hang out with the boys, but I'm also a super nerd. So if I start nerding out too much, you got to pull me back.
Okay.
But
You're good.
the swelling, and like when they said they took your blood at urgent care and they're like, holy shit, you gotta go to the hospital, you have rhabdo. The swelling isn't a result of actually of the breakdown of myoglobin. Myoglobin, like on Saturday, doing your, you know, your kipping pull-ups and your deadlifts, caused the breakdown of your protein, which caused myoglobin to enter your bloodstream. Your body got rid of the myoglobin in your bloodstream fairly quickly, probably by that night, at the latest, the next morning. Because your
Okay.
body was working so hard to get rid of the myoglobin, it produced something called CK, creatinine kinase. When your body's, to be clear, is always producing creatinine kinase. Now, I want to make that clear. I'm not saying creatine. I'm not saying cytokinase. I'm not saying there's a million other words that sound like it. Creatinine kinase is a really, really specific inflammatory marker that appears in your body as a result of exertion. All of us are walking around with some creatinine kinase in our bodies. The diagnosing threshold of rhabdo starts at 1,000. So if you have 1,000, and I don't remember, it's like 1,000, you know, whatever deciliters per milliliter, whatever it is, right? The basically the density of creatinine kinase you have in your blood. When that hits 1,000, you're now considered to have a rhabdomyolytic episode, meaning so you have rhabdomyolysis now. The clients that or the patients that I saw had creatinine kinase levels somewhere, some of them were between 5 and 10,000. There's cases
Mhm.
online of creatinine kinase levels of up to 1,000,000, right? And
Yeah.
those are like the crazy, like, you know, they might be spending 30, 40, 50 days in the ER getting their blood basically flushed, potentially even having to undergo dialysis to get rid of that CK or to decrease the CK levels in your body. So the swelling, I'm getting tangential. I'll come back to it. The swelling in your arm wasn't from the breakdown of the myoglobin. It was actually from the creatinine kinase kind of pooling in your arm because it was like, there's been an injury here.
Okay.
There's been a breakdown of muscle tissue. We have to bring a bunch of stuff to this area to start to heal it. When you bring a bunch of stuff to a finite area, you increase the volume in that area. It starts to hurt. Like it sucks, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was primarily my right bicep and then my left bicep at once I was in the hospital. But when I went to the gym Monday morning just to like flush fluids, like a normal post workout recovery or post competition recovery, my whole body was swollen. My face was swollen. My hands were swollen. I really didn't even do too much. I was like, God, this is worse than I thought. But I really just didn't think too much of it. But when I did finally go to the hospital and I got some of my blood work back, my original CK was around 8,000. And then they started me on IV. By the time that was in urgent care or the ER. And then by the time I got to the hospital, we tested it. It was around 9 and actually went up to 11. And they didn't release
Mhm.
me until I got under 5. So it was, it was pretty hard to get it down. And it was a weird thing. Like, knee surgery or arm surgery, you can see it and feel it. This is like, I felt pretty normal. I knew I wasn't healthy, but like you're sitting there, you're fine. You can't see anything, almost like a brain injury, but my blood work was so bad. So I felt like I was sitting in the hospital okay. And they were just pumping me full of fluids. I was like at least 20, 22 pounds heavy of just pure fluids in like 3 days. I didn't even look like myself. But other than that, like
Mhm.
what is protocol? I mean, let's start here. If you think you have it, what is a first step one?
If you seriously think you have it, like, go to the ER, right? I mean,
Okay.
you can call your physician, you can call the thing is there's really no treatment other than pumping you full of fluids. The
Yeah.
key, and I won't go too deep into it, but the key is you can't, like, go to your local, right? You're in Colorado. I used to live in Colorado, right? My favorite IV clinic was Onus IV, right? If you think you have rhabdo, you should not go to your local IV clinic because, and again, I won't get too deep into it, but there are complications with rhabdo that can happen really quickly. Meaning, if your
Mhm.
body can't rid itself of those fluids, right? Because you think about fluid flush is basically how to get all those inflammatory markers out of your body. Complicated cases of rhabdo will actually cause your body to hold on to that fluid. Well, your body's already holding on to more fluid than it should be. That's why you're swelling. So if you're introducing more fluid and you're not getting rid of it, meaning you're not peeing it out, you could actually cause more harm than good. So what I like to tell people is if you think you truly have rhabdo, meaning if your Coca-Cola, if your pee looks like Coca-Cola, right? Or if you have unexplained swelling, muscle tension, muscle weakness, muscle fatigue, mental clarity that's way, way, way outside of the norm, I just say go check yourself into the ER. And the worst thing that could happen is they tell you that you're crazy, right? The crazy part of that all is all of the fatalities that have happened as a result of rhabdo are people downplaying it, thinking, "Oh, I'm just really, really, really sore these days." Rhabdo is one
Yeah.
of those things. Again, it sneaks up on people. The cases that I dealt with when I was working in college football, it was because we made our O line run 100-yard sprints for 4 hours in the middle of the afternoon because they got in trouble. Right? There was another case out of Iowa where, or the University of Iowa, this is, I think it was about like 8 or 9 years ago. The entire track team got in trouble and they had to do push ups for like an hour. Well, those are high level athletes. They're college track
Yeah.
runners, but they've never done push ups to save their life, right? They're runners. If you ask them to do 1,000 squats, they'd be fine. But they did a
Yeah.
thousand push ups and like three of the kids got rhabdo. At the other university that I was working at, we made all the linemen run for hours and hours. And this actually, both of those cases actually ended up causing a rule change in the NCAA. So there's a lot more
Okay.
regulation because, thank goodness, none of the athletes at either of those schools passed away. But there was a serious concern that if somebody did pass away, it would have been a direct result of the exertion that they had to endure as a result of quote unquote being reprimanded, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
It's
and
crazy.
that's why I want people to hear this because in my mind, I've gone to the CrossFit games and D1 athlete, blah, all the flexes, but and I've trained, to your blacked out. I've been in the sun at the CrossFit games on a black turf. So it's 10 degrees. We're sweating. We're on workout five. I mean, we've pushed ourselves to the max. So I want people to know it's not always those situations. This one, like, yeah, I pushed till failure. The deadlifts was to failure. But in my mind, I think I was pushing like I was in the same fitness level that I was at the games, 10 years ago, where now I'm
Hmm.
not, but like my mindset's still there. But I still didn't like have a moment where like it's that hard. So it's almost just like you need to heighten your awareness in your body, your mind body connect, because it doesn't necessarily have to be like that super crazy punishment competition blackout day. It can be where you just did a lot more than you really think, and you have to be aware what's going on with your body because it could actually be way worse than you think. I mean, we're so disconnected as competitors to really know like our baseline because we're built to push it. Like that's why we train.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You took the words out of my mouth. Like we're taught to ignore that.
Mhm.
I love what you said. It's like increasing your body awareness will help a ton, and it doesn't even have to be the hardest thing in the world. If you could say like, yes, a really, really hard workout may cause it, but also a new workout, right? So it might not take, like, you and I could maybe bang out 100, 200, 300 push-ups in a session. You ask a track athlete who hasn't done a push-up in 10 years, whose legs are tree trunks, to do 10, 15, 30, 100, 200 push-ups, like, it might not be a quote unquote super hard workout, but that could be enough to cause injury locally, say triceps, biceps, chest, whatever. That's going to eventually, if they do develop rhabdo, cause a whole systemic reaction throughout their whole body. And that's what we want to really avoid.
Oof. Okay, so we know what it is. We know what to do. Basically, if you think you have it, I would be overly precautious. Go into, and even urgent care can't do anything. You got to get a blood test. So I would say just go to the ER, pack some earphones. I'm going to do a whole podcast on what to expect when you don't expect to go to the ER because there is some things you can bring to make that visit so much better that we'll get into. But now I want to know what are like the potential residuals? Like a lot of people are like, are you going to make a full recovery? Like, what do I need to watch out for? Can this come back? Like, what should I be worried about?
Yeah. Um, Most of the time, so obviously there's always going to be outliers, you're good, right? Most of the
Mhm.
time, as long as you, like, once you're diagnosed with rhabdo, as long as you follow the protocol, you're super, super slow at easing back into exercise, you're going to be good. There's not a lot of like, and they're still studying this again, like you said, right? Most physicians don't even know what it is, how to identify it, and even how to treat it. So there's not a ton of research that has gone into rhabdo, but all of the studies that have been done on it, most people are making a full recovery, right? All you got to do is take the fluids, right? Rest up, let your body. It's one of those recoveries that almost becomes annoying because you're like, all right, 2, 3 weeks later, I feel good. Well, okay, that's when it's time to like go for a half-mile walk, right? Depending on like what
Yeah.
the injury was, and for you, it's like I would say like give it 3 or 4 weeks, and then maybe do like 10 push-ups in a day, right? Tomorrow, let's do like maybe 15 push-ups. The next day, and it's a super, super slow and methodical ease back into exercise. Most people, one, it's a traumatic event, right? It definitely like you're going to be thinking about it, even if it's in the back of your mind, every time you're working out. So that raises a safety blanket, I guess, for lack of better terms, where I don't have anywhere, and you have pretty good body awareness. Like I don't have any worry that you're now predisposed to developing another case of rhabdo. And most people are the same way. Right? Most people won't do it. Um, what worries me is when athletes get rhabdo twice, either in the same areas or in different areas, where they don't have a highly specific explanation. Like, oh, my coach made me do 1,000 push-ups and I've never done a push-up before. Or my coach made me do 1,000 squats and I'm a ping pong player, right? Oh, maybe they're good at squatting. I don't know, right? I had to do something and I've developed it twice. When I do see an athlete or anyone get 2 episodes of rhabdo, that's when I'm like, okay, we should probably. And there are specialists that exist around the country. Like, okay, let's go see a specialist. Let's go do some genetic testing. Let's go figure out what else or other comorbidity is what we would call it that's causing you to develop rhabdo more easily. One of those comorbidities that probably a lot of people listening have heard of, it's really, really, really loosely correlated, but sickle cell, right? Sickle cell anemia, when your
Okay.
hemoglobin is actually sickled, it's not a causation. I want to make that super clear, right? I'm not saying people who have sickle cell are more prone to developing rhabdo. What I am saying is if you develop rhabdo and you have sickle cells or you have sickle cell anemia, the chances of you getting another case of rhabdo and that case being worse goes up, right? Because your body now
Okay.
has a traumatic memory of that. But by and far, basically the treatment is, obviously get pumped with fluids in the short term, ease back into exercise in the long term. You're probably not at risk of ever developing it again. You're probably at a lower risk now because you're like, shit, that sucked. I don't want to ever do it again. And there is no genetic predisposition that we know of. There's no hereditary thing where like, oh, you're going to get it and she's not. And there's nothing that tells me like once you get it, now that muscle is going to more easily get it. Like as long as you let your right bicep just chill for a little while, you're good.
Noted. And please, again, be aware and advocate for yourself because my doctors were like, well, if you don't want to do CrossFit ever again, that's what we suggest. And I'm like, dude, fitness isn't the problem. It's like how you approach it. And then they cleared
Yeah.
me. They're like, you can eat and drink whatever you want, including alcohol. And I was like, no way. Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
And I will say, I wanted the doctors, like multiples, were like, did you do cocaine that night? I'm like, what? Do I
Mm-hmm.
look that? No, dude, I don't. I'm an lifelong athlete. I get tested. I mean, not anymore, but in my mind, I'm still a pro athlete. But I no, like that's not the vibe. But multiple times, and then they asked if I did steroids. I'm like, doesn't look like I do steroids or
Yeah.
cocaine. So I don't know. There were some like comical moments, but they were grasping for straws. Like, how do we make this make sense? But when they left, they're like, eat whatever you want in here. And I was like, no, dude, I'm not going to eat inflammatory foods while I'm here. I'm going to try to avoid it. I did eat some stuff because the food was actually pretty good, but obviously no
Nice.
alcohol. And I'm back to CrossFit, but I haven't done a single pull up or anything. I've done some weight things, but I've really, really pulled it back because, like you said, I'm scared. And I'm not even scared of like how bad it was. I'm scared that I didn't know. And that had I not just gone in on a whim, just like out of intuition, like how bad it could have got without me like really knowing. Like this kind of out of the nowhere thing really threw me for a loop. So now we got shit to do. We can't be in the hospital for 5 days. That's not an option.
Yeah, no, definitely not. What I would tell people, because what I don't want is people to listen to this and be like, holy shit, I need to like pull back on my working out. No, like keep going
Yeah.
balls to the wall, keep having fun, keep pushing yourself super hard. I would say if you're the two things to look out for is crazy, crazy, crazy abnormal tenderness, weakness, swelling, muscle fatigue, all of those things, right? Not just sore from a workout, but like crazy abnormal, or a urine color that resembles tea, like black tea or Coca-Cola, right? Either of those two things happen, get yourself to the ER. If you're sore and you're dehydrated, you're like, yeah, I'm peeing apple juice and like my whole body hurts because I just did a full body CrossFit workout, you're probably fine, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this isn't the disclaimer is this isn't medical advice, right? Go always consult your physician for your number one thing, right? Go to the ER if you're worried about it. But by and large, this is something to be aware of, at least something to know it exists. But I definitely don't want people like walking around scared that they're going to develop rhabdo because there's an AMRAP on the board that's harder than it was yesterday. You're going to be fine.
Yeah, amen. And here's the thing: if you, for how sore I was, like I've known sore, like again, games and all this. My arm was sore to the touch. I couldn't even straighten my arm. So you'll know if it's really, really bad. And again, I thought I had a blood clot. It was that swollen. So you'll know something's wrong. I just didn't know what it was. But now we've got Steve on our side and laying it out there. We could get into the tea, but I do want to put an pin there because we'll have Steve back on our show in 2026 and we'll dive into like human heart and all the magic that he brings to the table because you are a wealth of intel. And I'm not kidding you. That is the most specific and well explained version of rhabdo that I've had to say. And it's been almost, 3 weeks since I've done this. And I've talked to probably 20 different doctors, 3 different neuro people, protocol on recovery. And like, you nailed it in 35 minutes. So
I'm not even a doctor.
I know. Well, not yet, my dude. You're like Dr. Dre. You're out here. Tell us, what do you have coming up? Where can we find you? What do we need to know about you? Like, give us the tea.
Shit, you want to know anything about me, just ask. I got a lot of stuff coming up. So like I said, I moved to Florida. I'm probably gonna get on social media. So if you guys want to follow me, it's just Steve Nagib. That's it. That's like I got in the social media game early. I just haven't posted in like 5 years. So I'm on tour right now with a business mastermind. We go all over the country. We go to a different city every month, teaching entrepreneurs basically how to scale their businesses. It's called the Aspire Tour. So I advise the owner of that. I help create some of the presentations, and then I kind of help run the company. So that's kind of on the short-term horizon. On the long-term horizon, we were kind of chit-chatting before we got on today. I do want to get back into personal development coaching, mind, body, spirit, right? I think if you take care of your body, your mind will follow. If you take care of your mind, your spirit will follow. So who knows? There might be a mastermind or two on the horizon that I might be starting here up with a friend. But if you follow me on Instagram, you won't miss out on that opportunity because I'm going to come probably in the next 30 days or so, 30 to 60 days. I'm going to come out of hibernation and start posting stuff on Instagram. Thanks to AI, right? I could not sit down and do it without all of the AI things kind of like scheduling all of this stuff for me. So I'm excited. So yeah, if you're listening, give me a follow and big things are coming.
What's your Instagram handle?
Steve Nagib, super easy.
Look at that branding. Bang, bang. He's been literally all over the world. This human he is literally in the arena, but he's done a ton of stuff and seen a ton. I don't care what degrees and titles and whatever you have. He's worked with so many humans on so many levels. The experience is, it's second to none. And he just has a wealth of intel to share. And, I go to my go-tos. I'm very lucky to have really great humans in the health and wellness industry. So if I'm calling you, I've got, a lot of people, but if you're here, it's a big deal because I really trust your word. So thanks for what you do. Thanks for showing up and telling me what's going on in my world.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor, it's a privilege, and it's always a blast, so I appreciate it.
My dude. A little love to our sponsors, Colorado Clownfish Swim School. They provide water safety and swim lessons for all ages. They believe in life skills through sports, so go check them out, coloradoclownfish.com. Declan James Watches, go check them out, local veteran owned. Perfect gift for the gift giving season. Go check out what Steve has going on or get onto his Instagram. There's so much good content coming out. And if you're thinking you have rhabdo, go to the ER. I will have my full story coming out on what that full day was so you can get into the details and what happened. But I wanted to get this out ASAP because people have been asking me and I'm like, we got to get a pro in the mix. So take care of yourself, take care of each other. You can get TNT wherever you find your podcast, and we will have the video on YouTube. Again, thank you, Steve. Everybody, we will see you soon. Cheers.
Thank you for joining Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.